In the immortal words of Will Smith, welcome to Earth. Top of the morning to you, and welcome back to Comic Universe, and happy St. Patrick's Day as of this recording.
I think the shots have been getting to him.
I've only had 6, thank you.
True story.
That's actually, pretty true. I've actually been celebrating my Irish pride because, the pasty white boy, who didn't think he would be, Irish, right?
Right.
Of Irish descent.
And speaking of green.
Yeah, well, more green and blue. Certain shows coming on next week.
That is true, Krypton.
And we are very much looking forward to it. So the next few videos you're going to see are going to be Superman-oriented.
As we celebrate the countdown to Krypton, as we like to call it.
That's right. Boy, that wasn't half-assed, right?
Right? At all.
No. And we're going to kick things off with a comic by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, Superman Brainiac. And I got to say, I love this book.
It's pretty sweet. It's pretty awesome.
With Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, now you can't go wrong with that combination.
I would agree, especially Jeff Johns. I mean, the guy can do almost no wrong, right?
Yeah. Unless it's Batman. I don't like his Batman.
Well, we'll see what he does if he ever gets another shot at it.
He did Batman Earth 1,
Sure.
and at least for me. But anyway, Dubs, what did you think of this comic?
I loved it. I'm right there with you. When I think of everything Superman, if you will, anything Superman, when I think of how his life is and in the scenarios that he's in and just his support cast, this is what I think of. From his relationship to his parents to his relationship with his co-workers, that's how I envision it's my Superman, essentially. Yeah. The Superman I grew up watching, reading, everything from animated to comic books and movies and everything in between. Yeah.
And speaking of movies, the thing that Gary Frank always does that usually pisses me off about with most artists, is that they try to emulate a certain actor. Like, of course, with Mike D. Dowd Jr., he did that with Osborn, making him look like Tommy Lee Jones.
Right.
And, of course, making Ultimate Nick Fury look like Samuel Jackson, which we all know.
That's for the better. That one,
yeah, well, that
one
was for the
might
better.
be for the better.
Yeah, but Gary Frank does something that I actually enjoy, is that he makes Superman look like Christopher Reeve. And Christopher Reeve is Superman.
Of course, he's my Superman.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Say what you want about everyone else, even Brandon Routh and everyone, and Henry Cavill and all them.
I mean, there's others that have laid their mark and have put their stamp on it, but when I read,
no one compares to Reeve.
Right? No, there's just it's impossible.
Yeah, and it's actually like I was almost considering getting another Jeff Johns Superman story called Superman Last Son, which is actually co-written by Richard Donner.
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's pretty awesome. We'll have to put that on the list. Yeah, for sure.
Which is also another great comic. That one actually has Zod in it, and that would have been But this is actually also kind of close to what we were talking about, because Brainiac is the big villain of Krypton.
Right.
Speaking of Brainiac, this actually kind of changes things around with Brainiac on a whole, is that like all the Brainiacs we've seen throughout the universe, throughout the DC Universe history and all the reboots, is that they were not the real Brainiac.
Right.
This is the real Brainiac right now. And I think that's a cool object that, every time Superman fought Brainiac, it was just a probe, essentially.
Yeah. He even mentions, he kind of changes his look every time I face him. Every time, we've squared off. And she basically, Kara, she tells him, Supergirl, she's like, you haven't faced the real one. I've seen the real one. And, she even makes the comment in the book that just as you say Lex Luthor is everything that is wrong with humanity, okay, she basically goes out and says he is everything that is wrong with aliens.
Yeah.
And that's pretty powerful words, and it's true. I mean, the dude is a monster. I mean, he's cold. He's just, sometimes when you're dealing with monsters, there's passion behind what they're doing. With him, it's just cold, and it's calculating.
Everything what I like about with Brainiac, what they've done even in like Injustice and everything else, came from essentially this book.
Yeah, that is true. You could definitely see, especially with the tentacles and everything, this is their inspiration.
Yeah. For those, like, the whole story is that Brainiac is searching for Superman, and he's getting close, and Superman decides, that's it, I'm gonna go find him. And this is also the comic that also deals a lot with Superman's family. And I honestly liked when Superman just does normal stuff, like him just talking with his parents, or there's even a moment in Last Son where he's just flying through the sky and people are just saying, "Good morning, Superman." He's like, "Good morning. Remember to drink your juice, kids."
Right.
Like, I just love those moments when Superman's just, not, we all love, him throwing down, but when he's just palling around people, that's when I love him the most.
And that's usually when people fail when they're writing Superman, is they don't get the human side of him a lot of times. And it really is like a scene in the beginning where it's just him sitting around in a board meeting at the Daily Planet, and they're introducing new co-workers, and I forget the guy's name, but the...
Steve Lombard.
Yeah, Lombard, that's right. The sports analyst, he comes in, and he's essentially, for lack of a better term, hitting on Lois. And you see Superman gets jealous, and he literally burns the seat he's sitting in so that he tips over and falls and spills coffee all over himself and donuts. And it's like such a human moment for Superman to feel jealousy in that split second when it's like, dude, it's Superman. There's no way she's going to go for this guy over you, but yet he still has a human moment, and it's great.
Speaking of that, this is also the return in the DC comic. This is pre-52,
right?
Obviously. But this is the return of Steve Lombard and Cat Grant, who were both Superman supporting characters. They were rebrought in here. They do some stuff in here with the characters, but not a lot. But they're not the main focus. Just like, hey, Cat Grant, those shots are getting to me.
Shots.
And Lombard and Grant are essentially like, hey guys, they're back.
You're right.
And I especially love, Superman hanging out with his parents.
Oh man, that was really good. The stuff with his dad, man.
Yeah.
Touching, very touching.
I love like there's little flashbacks they have of like when he's giving his dad a baseball cap that says Happy Father's Day in like 32nd century.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, oh, this is great. I've never had one of those. And
he's like, I'm pretty much the only person ever with one of these caps. And he's like, yeah, you pretty much are.
Yeah. And that's what it really comes down to, is that Superman, despite being a god, this comic really shows that he's so human.
He's human. I mean, again, man, this is like, and again, I don't want to turn this into a bash, the DC cinematic universe, but this is essentially, I think, where the essence of where Man of Steel went south. It all stems from the relationship with his parents. I think the whole movie is fine, and if you like it, that's fantastic, but where I think all the troubles start, granted, obviously there's big wigs and ties that have stuck their finger in a DC cinematic universe, but it starts with when his parents aren't as supportive as they should be and aren't teaching him right from wrong, and just the wholesomeness of the Kents is what makes Superman so great. That is his greatest asset. That's his superpower. The way he was raised, that to love everybody. There's even in the comic, his dad tells him, he's like, that's your greatest gift, is caring for everybody, essentially, that you don't let anyone or anything get you away from doing the right thing. And even and there's another scene where his dad is pulling out all these trinkets, like you were talking. He pulls out a baseball bat that has been beat to shreds. He pulls out a pair of tennis shoes that have been burnt to a crisp. And Superman's like, why did you keep these? He's like, because I have to share you with the world for how great you are. This is all that I have left of you. He's like, I need you too, and this is how I hold on. And the moment is just so touching. And he's like, but no matter what, do the right thing. Go out there and save those people. Where in the movie, he's like, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe
you should have let them all die.
Maybe you should let a bunch of kids in a bus die. I'm like, what the hell are you telling him? And that's really where I think the essence fails, and where Snyder just didn't understand the humanity that Superman really has. He has all these powers, and he's a god, but I think he's a human first. I think he is an Earthling. He was raised here. This is his home. He doesn't know Krypton.
Yeah. And this was also the start for a lot of what Jeff Johns and a lot of the other writers did towards the end of the pre-52 comics, with a lot of the new Krypton story arc, with because Kandor comes back.
Yes.
They also do in here, they make it official, because it was always left in the air for Krypton. It was like, what destroyed Krypton? Was it natural disaster? Was it something else? This time around, they confirm it was Brainiac who did it.
Right.
They essentially say, yeah, it was Brainiac who caused everything, or at least, started the chain of events.
Right.
Because you see Kandor being taken at the beginning, and it's apocalyptic.
Right.
Like, even Zod's like, oh my god, that just happened. And you see, like, Zod is even like, I'm gonna find you, don't worry, I'm gonna come find you. And like, that's such a human moment for Zod, where he's screaming, like, I will save you,
Yeah, and it made me think that if maybe we could have gotten it a little more played out, that this is really what sends him on the pathway of the dark side, if you will, for lack of a better term, just the idea of if him loving Krypton and his people so much, and then having this alien come out and do this to them
and take the capital city,
right? So it almost makes him out to be, you know, this character where you understand where he's coming from. Like, sure, he may not necessarily be going about it the right way, okay, but he has a point to being as extreme when it comes to his people and his planet. I mean, he's seen the worst. He's seen his whole planet die. I mean,
yeah.
Could you imagine what we would be like if we were in that situation?
Yeah. And he essentially feels betrayed by the people,
By
the
his own
government,
people.
by the government he served under. So, and that's what I liked is that although he's a very militaristic and just downright bastard in Last Son. In New Krypton, you do see moments where he's like, "We're the last Kryptonians, Clark. Kandor is all that's left of our people, essentially, because you sent everyone else back to the Phantom Zone. This is all that's left of our people. I'm going to do my... And you essentially left us on Earth with these humans. I need to keep these people safe. Fuck the humans, Krypton first. You know, what's left of us is...
Right, yeah.
And you also get to see, and I think they explored a little more, is that in Kandor are Superman's aunt and uncle.
Right.
And he has this moment of, oh my god, outside of... I have family, you know. That's
and at first he thinks it's his father he's hearing.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that makes sense why you think you're hearing your father, because I'm his brother, where I guess they sound the same. So that was pretty cool to get that. It's just a pretty sweet moment.
Yeah. I just kind of like dig that Superman like found more of his family. Like, even though it's his aunt and uncle, you don't see any good uncles in comics or anywhere else.
Right, yeah, definitely.
Everyone's just Scar in the making. Like, unless your name's Ira from Avatar.
That's funny, right. But really, no, I was just going to say is that this book, just like you said, it takes Superman and shows everything that makes him so great and what I miss from Superman, and gives me, you know, everything we all know and love of Superman. But then on the flip side, it turns it into something else where it's like he's the man on the mission. Like you said, he decides, he's like, I'm done sitting around waiting for Brainiac to come and attack, and, you know, I'm done him hurting my family and my people. I'm going to go get them. And, you know, he goes into space, and, you know, before we know it, we're back on Earth. And it's just, the book itself, the pacing is really good, too. I really enjoy that, too, in both books.
Well, it's a 5-part story in Action Comics.
Right.
And Action Comics never really had long stories, at least in pre-52. I thought this was interesting that, you know, and they did a movie off of this called Superman Unbound or something, and that movie was crap. I don't know, I keep hearing that pop.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'll figure it out later.
What's also interesting in here is that, yes, this is the comic where Jonathan Kent dies of a heart attack. Again, Superman in the movie. And it's a great scene where he's saved Kandor. And he's like, I'm going to go back to the other bottled city soon, but first I'm going to, you know, save Kandor, restore it. And then, like, he's so enamored. It's the most joyous moment in Superman's life. You know, I've saved a chunk of my people. And he can't hear his father having a heart attack. And then he finally hears his mom say, Clark, half across the world. He's like, oh God, bam!
Yeah, it was very touching. Like, I mean, I didn't cry or anything like that, but I felt it, like, just to see it all. I mean, I knew it was happening. I've read it before, and we've all seen in different stories where Jonathan dies here and there, and seen it in films and stuff like that. And it's never easy to see Superman, because we know how much he cares for everyone. Just imagine how much more he cares for his own family. And to know that, like you said, man, he's finally getting family, you know, more family. He's getting his home back. A piece of him that has always been lost, he has found. And now he's losing his dad. And it's just like, he can't win. It's absolutely horrible to see Superman go through that.
Yeah. What's also interesting, and this is another thing a lot of people forget about with Superman, is that at the end of the comic, all he is thinking about, because he essentially captures Brainiac and throws him in prison. And all that's going through his mind is barging in there, ripping down the doors, and beating him to death. But he's not acting on it, even though he wants so much, and he knows there's no one who can stop me. Batman's got kryptonite, but, like, really, come on. Like, if I really wanted to...
Right. It was an interesting scene, especially, like, at the wake, or at the funeral, when he does have that flashback, and, like, he's thinking in his head to go fly in there and just pound him. We actually get to see his thoughts. And at first, the first second, you're like,
Oh my god!
Oh my god! Did he just flew away from the funeral to go bash Brainiac's brains in? I'm like, this isn't Superman. And then it's like Lois comes in. She's like, Clark, or was it his what mom or
it was Lois.
It was Lois. So she's like, Clark, and he snaps out of it, and he was essentially having a daydream about bashing Brainiac's brains in, and he just kind of breaks down to his wife, and he just explains. He's like, I lost my dad. I can't. You know, what can I do? And
yeah, I can't fly back in time and
right, I can't pull the world backwards like in the movie. He's like, that's another universe. I can't do that here.
But I like that. Like, this is another thing I've never really. I like the Injustice games, but I never liked the idea of him losing Lois and him going insane. And this brings up a good point of it. Even though they're gone, everything they taught me is still there, and I can think about it all day, but I'm never going to act on it. So
right, and well, it was also Lois though who kind of made that comment.
Yeah,
he's like, what am I gonna do? Not because Superman is like, I lost him. What am I gonna do? You know, and she's like, you're gonna do what you always do, and you're gonna do what he taught you to do, and that's be great, be Superman, protect everyone, and then he basically sits there during the scene where his dad is talking about all the trinkets with the burnt shoes and the ball. He ends up giving his dad a horseshoe that he uses his heat vision to write "World's Greatest Dad" on. And at the very last scene, we get Superman just in a dark room,
the barnyard.
The barnyard, and it's kind of dark, and he's just bent over, essentially crying, with the horseshoe right there in front of him, and it's like he just misses his dad, and that's how the comic ends, and it's just like, oh, Jeff, why did you do that to my heart? You know, it was absolutely heart-wrenching to see, I mean, a god weeping.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a very, there's such a great blend in here, and just 5 short issues is that it's such a great blend of action, drama, and just sci-fi stuff. I mean, again, this is where all the stuff for Brainiac comes from, you know, the stuff they do now with Brainiac.
So I guess, what are your final thoughts?
Get this book, man. If you are looking for like good Superman stuff, and you're looking for like, because this one is, even though it's Jeff Johns, not a lot of people read it. I would say check this out. It's only $13, but maybe you can find it cheaper online and all that.
Yeah, definitely, probably.
Yeah,
or maybe on a what's it called? Their not streaming service, but DC has its own comic.
I would also say, like, this, if you're looking for stuff to check out for Krypton and all that, I'd say get that. There's not a lot in there that has a lot of like stuff you need to read prior. Like, this is very self-contained.
Oh yeah, I mean it takes whatever you know of Superman or what you expect out of a Superman, especially pre-52. Okay, and so you kind of know when you get in. If you've ever seen the animated series, you kind of get an understanding of who Clark is, and you get that here. And I think this might actually be an essential read, to be honest with you, for anyone who wants to get to know Brainiac. Because I don't know this for sure, I don't have any insight to the show, but I would almost guarantee that this show is going to pull some direct influence.
Oh yeah.
If not, they're missing the benchmark.
From the way I've seen the ship and how he's connected to it, there's definitely some influence there. The Supergirl stuff, just because we've got Supergirl in here is actually battling trauma.
Oh yeah.
Because Brainiac took her parents and her friends.
Ripped right out from underneath her, basically. She got to see, again, try to put yourself in your shoes, whatever your hometown is, wherever you currently live. Just think about all of a sudden aliens showing up, taking everybody you love without reason or cause. You don't know what the hell's going on. And after, including taking your talent away, essentially, killing thousands of people in the most gruesome, bloody ways you could possibly think of.
And the only person who's left is your cousin. That's it.
Your baby cousin that you're supposed to be raising that turns out raising you. Talk about some life-altering events.
Yeah. It's, I like the because she's afraid of Brainiac. She's terrified beyond belief.
Right.
And you see, like, when she's destroying the Brainiac probe, and when she's using her heat vision, there's tears.
Yeah,
like burning tears.
Yeah, that was pretty fantastic. And even with Lois, because Lois knows how she feels about the situation, and Lois is just like, even though she's Supergirl, I mean, she's basically a god herself. Lois is screaming at her like, "Fly away, get out of here! You can't." Like, she doesn't want her to have to face this demon essentially. And she comes to the realization. She goes, "I am terrified. I'm scared, but I can't because essentially Superman wouldn't run, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna run. That's just it. You're not gonna take. And when he first shows up on Earth, she's like, clearly she says that, oh my God, not here too, and it explains why she spends so much time as Supergirl, because she doesn't want to. They even mention it in the comics. She doesn't want to fit into our world because she's afraid to lose it.
Yeah. And I was like, that's really cool.
Oh man, it was great.
Because you see her so much as Supergirl, you don't see her as like, just being a Kara.
Yeah, like the show. We don't you don't really get a lot.
Because she's so psychologically snapped like that. Like, I could, just like that, I could just lose everything all over again. So I cannot be attached. And this is the wake up call for her. I was like,
right.
You're here, help. It's time to and she faces that demon head on. And it's not even like she has to be snapped out of it. It's more like it's a realization of, no, not again.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like a moment of weakness that she's like, this is not happening, not again.
This time I got powers.
Right, and then eventually she does get overpowered and taken into the ship, and there's a scene when Superman finally frees her and he needs her help, and instead of she wants to keep going. She has overcome this fear of Brainiac, and she wants to destroy him. Superman's like, no, I'll take care of him. I need you to go do this and save our world, essentially.
Yeah.
And so what happened is Brainiac had sent a probe towards our sun, basically to make it go supernova, to kill Earth, essentially. Yeah. Now that he's captured Metropolis, he wants to basically do the same thing he did to Krypton and destroy the world.
Yeah.
So Kara has to go and save the world, while Superman is duking it out with Brainiac.
Or better put, beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, right? Literally.
But Brainiac actually, it shows how strong he is at the beginning, but he needs all that tech. But the moment Brainiac, falls on Earth and he's covered in germs, he's like, oh, that's your weakness, you're a germaphobe. And then the most gratifying moment is when Superman's putting Brainiac's face in the mud
yes.
by the boot.
I kind of found it really funny, kind of like, have you ever seen the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds?
Yeah.
Where the germs and everything are kind of our saviors. I kind of took it like that, where it's like he's such a control freak that the one thing he couldn't control was the actual, germs and all the insects in our world, and he just had no control over being in that situation, and it freaked him the F out.
It's also hilarious that Superman essentially quotes Will Smith.
Yeah, right. So guys, my final thoughts are I'm right there with DPZ. Get this book. I would say it's almost an essential read to know what Brainiac is going to be up to for the upcoming Krypton show. And even if you miss what Superman was prior to New 52.
Although you get that with Rebirth.
No, yeah, but if you want to find out where he came from and see what he was like in those scenarios, because now he's a dad, so things are a little changed. Just kind of know who he was. Yeah. Okay, this is definitely, and also to any of our younger viewers that are kind of started with the New 52 or even with just Rebirth, this is a good way to understand who Superman really is and who his connection to his family really is, because you can see a lot of Jonathan Kent in Rebirth, in Superman. How he's raising his son. You can see where he gets it from.
Yeah.
From Jonathan. So, guys, get this, pick it up. I would say it's probably the best book we've reviewed so far, personally.
Yeah.
So that's basically it.
So for next week we're gonna do
the Kaiju week.
Yeah. Because certain kaiju movies coming out, Pacific Rim, and we're going to kick things off with Godzilla: The Half-Century War, written and drawn by James Stokoe. By far, the best comic IDW did for Godzilla. Just saying that right out the gate. I'm so hyped to talk about this.
Awesome, and I've never read it, so it's going to be a first time for me. He's a popping my cherry with it. Well,
I'll
guys,
be gentle.
I'm gonna need some more drinks. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for checking us out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the video, and click the bell to be a part of the notification squad.
And once again, see you once more in the universe.
Peace.